Right.
Invest in the things that you like, know, and understand.
That's right.
So
All right, guys. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. So we're going to be talking about infinite banking today with a longtime practitioner. Well, she's young, but she's been doing it a long time. Hannah Kesler, and of the Money Multiplier, right? Is the firm, and
it's not
so
common.
yeah, I heard her on another show of a friend of mine with Caleb, and I was just telling her before we started recording, we've met, but it was briefly, like at an infinite banking think tank. So actually, I'm excited to get to know you a little bit, and we'll make sure we stay in touch even after we do the show. So
I know, and thank you. Let me tell you something, Curtis, too. Specifically at that one that we met at in Birmingham, Alabama, at the Nelson Nash think
yeah,
tank. That one, I recall feeling grateful for being a woman that day, because that event, there were more men in the audience than there were women. And on the break times, us women normally at events, we have the long lines outside the bathrooms. This
okay,
time it was totally opposite. I was like,
right.
oh, so this is what it feels like to be on the opposite
That's
side.
right. And that's kind of where we met, like in the coming and passing the night. But that's funny. That's the thing. So tell me about that. I guess let's talk about that for a second. So not the bathroom part. The women in
Yeah.
financial services, or in this particular uh realm of IBC, or infinite banking concept. What have you seen? I think there's room for more.
I agree. I
And,
agree.
I actually took my daughter to some event. I said, my 13-year-old, I said, see what don't you see? It was at an award ceremony at one of my companies. I said, what don't you see? I said, I was trying to show her, like, there's not, she's only 13. I said, there's not enough women here. And, she might be my heir apparent,
Yes.
that's,
Yeah. And I do believe, I think the times are changing, but actually, I was just having a conversation with somebody on my team. Her name's Sandra. Actually, Sandra heads up my application team. She
mhm,
was one of my father's first ever clients when he
mhm,
started teaching IVC back in 2012. Because, right, we were consumers of this first,
right,
started practicing to know weights, and then teaching in 2012. And Sandra was saying, it's just different, because when I was growing up, the man was always leading the household. The women weren't really involved in the finances and the decision making. They were always, the caretakers in the household, the cooking, the cleaning, and making sure that the beds were made and blah, blah,
right.
blah, right? And so it's kind of cool now, because there are more women getting into
Some
the
people might call
profession,
that the good old days, but I'm just saying, just kidding. All right.
right?
No
And
kidding. I'm very silly. I gotta hold my. It was just what pops in my head. I gotta remember not to say everything that pops in my head.
no, it's
But
good
okay.
though. What does Nelson Nash say to us? He says, rule number 6 is don't take life too seriously. You're already checking it off the
There
list.
you go.
That's what we
Listen,
gotta always
but
remember.
life is too serious to take seriously. That's one of my mottos. So,
Uh-huh.
all right, go ahead. I broke up your with my silliness. I broke up your train.
Um, Not at all, but I think we are seeing a lot more. I will say specifically, just within my field of where I teach, yeah, there's not a lot of us. That's why actually every month we have a women's of IBC meeting,
Oh,
and it's
nice.
just a women group, and we go through different materials. We see how we can help each other within the business, and I would even just give that advice to all of your listeners: is that don't be afraid to collaborate. There's so many opportunities in different markets and people that you can tap into, and you're so much better doing it together than just looking at it as it's competition and fighting one another,
Right,
you know?
right. And somehow I fight that. I gotta, it's like it's a year of collaboration and of just being out there, because if you are coming at it from a prosperous mindset, then there's more than enough for everybody to have more than enough.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah.
that's I gotta catch myself from falling into scarcity. So I'm
Yes.
yeah. And not a struggle, but it's a you can fall back into that, and that's the enemy trying to, pull you back down. Tell me about, so you started early though. You're it's a family business. I
Mhm.
heard some of your stories. So tell a little about your story. And you started practicing at 18?
18 years old, yeah.
Okay.
And as of today, as of this recording, I'm 25 years old here in the
Oh, you're a
year
year older than my daughter.
5.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
And I do kind of make the joke, I've been around this privatized banking, the infinite banking concept since I've been pooping in my diapers,
Okay.
technically. But in all honesty, it was I grew up in an entrepreneurial environment. Dad is a chiropractor. My mom, she was working in the Navy and then came over, was helping dad within his business. And thus, then she started her billing business for the
Mhm.
chiropractic offices. So I've always been just around that mindset.
Right.
But, we did not know anything about this. We did not know a lot about money. Even my dad, this is where I got the whole saying of it doesn't matter how much you make, it only matters how much you keep. Because Pops was a very successful chiropractor. And yeah, he could be making 1 million a year, but who cares if he's making 1 million if his overhead is like 975,
Right. Right. That's right.
So that's when we got introduced to different chiropractic coaches and colleagues within the space, and that's where he was going out to these different seminars and learning a whole bunch of stuff. And so that's when he stumbled upon the teachings from Nelson's book Becoming Your Own Banker in 2006. He thought it was too good to be true, didn't do anything with this information, and then 2 years later, 2008, that's when he took action, because a lot of his colleagues were saying, hey, Brent, you really got to hop on this. You got to learn. And because we're doing it and it's working wonders for us, how to
Mhm.
keep the money, recycle it back inside of our hands and our family instead of the banks getting everything.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where my whole journey started. So in 2008 is when my family started doing this. And so that's why I've just learned all about it. I will say, for being second generation into this stuff, how important it is to talk about money within the family.
Yeah.
I just hate to see that money is such a taboo subject. And I think we need to normalize it. And so Pops would say, hey, I'm about to go and purchase this boat for the lake house. I know we want a new boat over there. Let me show you how I'm going to go make this purchase by leveraging, taking out a loan from my policy, going down to the Sea Ray people, purchasing the boat. But then here's the key thing: you need to treat your money with respect. Pay yourself back and pay yourself back with interest. And so he would kind of introduce us by showing us actionable and practical things that he was doing in
Right.
his life,
Mhm.
so that then the day that I turned 18, because you got to be 18 in order to own a policy. And at that time that I turned 18, I was actually still a waitress at Cracker Barrel, and I was doing a little bit of community college and stuff like that. But I remember the day that I had a shift at Cracker Barrel, and dad says, hey, I'm coming to come pick you up because it's your 18th birthday. We're driving to Commerce Bank. All right. Because at the time I lived in Kansas City.
Okay.
We're driving to Commerce Bank and we're going to go close out your savings account. And I was like, oh, okay, well, if we're going to close it out, what are we going to be doing with
Right,
it?
right, right.
And so from there, that's when I started my first policy. Is I took the cash that I was saving up, because he did teach me good habits, how to save the money, be disciplined with it. And that's where the whole journey started. And fast forward to here, I'm 7 policies deep and been doing this now for what, going on 8 years or so.
That's awesome. You know what? I wanna hear, describe what the infinite banking concept is, like how you explain it to your clients, because we're throwing it around like they know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I want to put your definition of it so we can just put it out there and then have discussions deeper from that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'll even say too, like when I'm traveling around, because I do a lot of speaking, I've done some television appearances and stuff like that. And, sometimes when I'm in the Uber bouncing from place to place, people will always ask me, well, you're in town. What are you in town for? Oh, it's business. Well, what is your company? What
Right,
do you do?
right.
So I'm going to give you kind of like my one liner first.
Okay.
So when people ask me, hey, what do you do? I say, I teach people how to build, keep, and create wealth through their own debts and expenses that they already have. How to get out of the banks, how to get out of the government's hair and be in total control of your financial life. And then they kind of get interested and they're like, well,
Right.
what are you talking about? So essentially what the infinite banking concept is instead of me going and placing my wealth inside of the commercial banks, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, US Bank, blah, blah, blah. Because when I make my deposits into that bank now, they use my money and they make a good living off of my money.
Right.
Well, why don't I just do that same thing? I'm going to place my wealth or my deposits into my bank, i.e., my whole life insurance policy with a mutually owned company that pays dividends. I'm going to make my deposits into my bank, my policy, and then through my privatized bank, I'm now the one who makes the interest, the profits, the dividends on my money instead of the bankers making a good living off of me. So I don't, when you start to talk about whole life,
Yeah.
there's an episode that I would love to record on my show, and
Okay.
maybe I'm going to bring you in on this
All
one.
right.
But I don't get why whole life has such a negative reputation when it provides so many value and these benefits. And I do think it's just because of all the gurus and everybody out there. But I have a whole episode that I want to go deep into that.
Yeah,
Like,
because it's if they knew how it really worked, as Nelson would say, they would be lining up around the corner to buy it,
yes.
because they want the benefits, but there's always I grew up this is a long story, but I got into the business at like 2021
Okay.
when I realized the NBA was not looking for 5'11" shooting guards. Right. So I got my insurance license, and it was with your dad would know this A.L. Williams, which became Primerica,
Uh-huh.
and your whole life was the devil, right? But even then we would say, look, that you didn't even want to say I insurance because they would say what the iron insurance. Think of when you're talking to people, the iron insurance is like an iron gate that's going to come crashing down on your feet, right?
Mhm.
But really, we shouldn't back away from it because it's such a great thing. That the challenge I have is that you don't have to hype it. Like, it's great. So to me, people push too. I always have to tell people, so look, this is just a place to store your liquidity, right?
Mhm.
And it's not a magic money box. Like
Yep.
one time I had a person called me, heard me on something, I think a webinar I'd done for some real estate group, and it was like, yeah, I want to get a apartment complex. She's in California, and I want $1 million policy, and I want to be able to, in about 4 months, I want to borrow $500,000 against it. And I was like, what are you talking about? That's, you don't borrow against the death
And
benefit.
let me guess. I just want to put in 200 a month.
Yes, it's something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, you have to capitalize. You have to, like, I always tell people, and so I say this because I like to hear the way you say it to people. Is I said, look, you gotta say. I remember on the show you said 10%. I teach people to say 15 to 20,
Love it.
and as a baseline. So I don't even care if it's going into policy yet. I just want to see if you can exercise what I call your pay yourself first muscles, right?
Yes.
And then maybe 10 to 12 of that could run through a policy. But I like to start them with, can you pay yourself first and create a separate account and move some money to that. And I like to see, I'll do their budget. Like, I'm very, because to me, I tell people, look, it's a saving strategy. So if you come to me and say, I want to be the bank, I say, well, how much are you saving? Oh, I'm not saving. Well, you can't be the bank then.
And some people don't even know. They're not
Right,
even tracking this stuff.
right, right. How do you get into that? How much is the tracking part, or do you like to get into with your clients?
Oh, all the time, all the time. I even tell people, I say, totally excluding the policy out of it, you need to understand the cash flow that's coming in monthly,
Yes.
annually.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a big advocate of this app called Rocket Money. I don't know if you
Okay.
ever heard me talk about Rocket Money
No,
before.
I haven't.
But I'm like, Rocket Money at this point, you just need to sponsor me. But I'm an active user of it. But I just like it because I have all of my bank accounts, my credit cards, everything hooked up to it. And it tracks my income and my spending.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, what I'm always looking at is on that app, it tells me how much I kept, how much I am keeping that can go towards savings. And I try to do at least 50%. That's
Wow.
me personally, you
Okay.
know?
Okay. All right. That's good. Well, your overhead's low. And so once you do that, so what do you use? Because I want to expand on this concept
Mhm.
of I'm simple, right? So I don't use it to run to the grocery store. I talk to people about the two things that I use our policy for, or what I call major capital purchases.
Yes.
Anything you can't pay for in full within monthly cash flow. So I'm a Don Blatton, circle of wealth guy, right? And then or opportunities to make more money.
Yes.
Anything other than that, or how do you talk to your clients about, what here are the uses of the policy?
Yep, yep. So definitely major purchases. My tax bill every year. I mean,
Exactly. I have one policy just for estimated taxes. Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I bought this new house over here in Daytona Beach. I'm like, ooh, we did not think about the taxes, did
Right.
we,
Right.
Hannah? But yeah, so big major expenses. I
Hmm.
actually even keep my emergency funds inside of my policies. What I personally like to do is I'll keep 6 months of my overhead expenses.
Okay.
3 months I keep at the local bank, and 3 months I keep inside of my policies. And that's money that I do not touch because pardon my French, but if shit hits the fan, I got
Right.
6 months of overhead expenses
Right.
covered, you
Right. Right.
know?
In the policies, or between, well, 3 months in the bank, the rest of it in the policies. And when you're loaning, you don't go below that
That
amount.
6 months
Okay.
threshold.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. I love that.
And I would even say debt, you know, I know it's not the most usual way to tackle on third party debt, but that is where my family started with all of this, with Pops having almost $1 million of debt. But I think what really made him successful is yes, when you run it through the policy, you never lose out on the opportunity cost, the interest that's earned on the money.
Right.
But number two, it really kept him disciplined. You know, that's the biggest things. Again, excluding the policy out of it, the only person and thing that can screw this stuff up is you and how you use the policy. And so it created a discipline habit because dad's a spender. All right.
Hmm.
That's where
Okay.
mom and dad would kind of get into
Okay.
it. But it would require him or almost force him to save instead of going and spending his money on stupid crap.
So I want to paint this picture for people. So
Mhm.
you figure out how much you can save. You're going to fund the policy, get some money in there, and then you'll collateralize or borrow against the insurance, the cash value to, I always call it, your bank is buying the debt back from Visa, and then you send that cash flow back to you.
Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
That's it. Because now you're shifting the control.
Right.
You know, that's the biggest teachings is that who is in control of that transaction. I would rather be in debt to myself and my policy rather
Okay.
than a bank who can come and foreclose on me or tow my car off my driveway, you
Right.
know?
Right. I think sometimes if you don't have any like investments, I'll look at people's situation. Like, what's the highest, best use of your money? And then we'll run a report saying, okay, this debt is costing you, the actual cost of this debt is like 52%. You know what I mean? The
Volume.
effective interest rate, right? And then how to recapture that.
Mhm.
And because if you just do like the Dave Ramsey way, the snowball, okay, yes, you're out of debt, but you're broke because you didn't give all your money away
Yeah.
to the institution. But it's not, because they'll call you. Do you get this, right? So that's going back and forth for our little pet peeves, right? But
Mhm.
no, do you get where people, oh, it's going to take 4 years, and I said, well, how long did it take you to build it up? Like you didn't, what did you want? It took you, how long did it take for you to accumulate this $30,000 credit card debt? I mean, what do you
Yeah.
expect to
Not overnight,
run
honey.
overnight? So I told you didn't get into overnight, so you ain't going to get out of it overnight.
Exactly.
So
Let me tell you, this
Okay.
business is very, very similar to like even the chiropractic business, because in that same manner, there'd be like Becky Smith coming in, for instance, and Becky's like, my back hurts, doc. And then we put together like a patient plan for her. And she's like, well, she'll stick to that patient plan for like a week. And then she comes back in later and she's like, my back still hurts. What's going on? Well, Becky, your back's been hurting for the last 10 years. 1 week is not going to fix everything. We're on a plan here
Right.
together. We're on a
Right.
journey.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's like they have a microwave. They want like immediate results, but it took a long time to build that up. Let's talk about the evolution as you've seen it from when you started of infinite banking over the years with the advent of new financial technologies or changing economic landscapes. Have you noticed anything like that in your
Yeah,
young career? You're
yeah,
sure.
no, I would say, okay, specifically, there's a lot of new technologies coming out. Like there's all these different debt programs and technologies and different things, which is great. It's fabulous. I I just think that sometimes we put a lot of emphasis on financial educators and people who have these big titles behind their name.
Right.
But y'all, at the end of the day, and I don't know if people don't love when I say this, but money is really not too complicated. We just have been programmed to think that it is just really complicated because it's so far out there. You
Yeah.
need to be super, super educated to go trade in the markets or do real estate or understand what a whole life policy is, but you don't. All you got to do is just spend a little time just furthering your knowledge, listen to some podcasts, read some books, and I promise you, you'll deeply understand it more and more. So, I know that we're always going through like these boom and bust cycles and different things.
Hmm.
That's why when it comes to me controlling what I do, like just in my own personal financial life,
Right.
I'm always going to get into things that has guarantees, and if it does involve some risk, like that's why I love real estate so much. I can control the risk that I'm taking of where I'm warehousing the wealth at.
Right.
That's why I'm not big into the markets. That's just me personally. If
Right.
something goes down in my real estate, I know at the end of the day, I got this tangible assets that nobody can come and take from me, right? And
Right.
everybody needs
Right.
shelter.
I always talk about I always tell clients to, first of all, I've been taught, and so I teach, investing is not about buying something, it's more about becoming something. You have to become a real estate investor, you have to become even you do equities, a trader, you become a good business owner. So,
Mhm,
but most people don't want to become. That's the problem. But as you look at that with one of the things I notice as I look at you all from afar, the whole crew, is I see a lot of people and I hear y'all talk about it. So the recapture,
mhm.
uh, private lending,
Private lending, yeah, yeah.
and the real estate. Can you tell me what draws you to that, and then how do you begin? At what point do your clients begin to move towards that?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So, and the only reason that I talk a lot about lending is just
Hmm.
because that's what I do.
Right.
That's what my father's even taught like the kids. I have an older brother and a younger brother.
Okay.
I'll get into them in a second. But when people show up at our front door, most of the time they're in debt. I mean, a payroll.org study shows that 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
Mm,
And since the previous year, that's a 6% increase.
mm,
So we have a problem, and where that problem is lying from is probably lack of education or lack of knowing what should I do with this money once it gets into my hands. Because most people's spending habits are, okay, I go out, I make this money, and then I spend, I pay all my bills, and I hope that there's some left over for us.
right.
Operating that pay myself first
Right. Right.
muscle, right?
Right.
So you always got to get into the mindset shift first. So most of the time, people show up at our front door, it's debt, and that's what we help them get out of first. Start clearing off any of those bad debts, because right, not all debt is bad debt,
Right.
but clearing off those bad debts first so that they start to free up that monthly cash flow, and then getting the control back into their hands.
Hmm.
And then once they cleared off the debt and they're just shifting that monthly payment instead of paying it to the third party debt people. Now they're paying that monthly payment back to themselves, plain honest banker.
Right.
Then they start to build up this capital inside of their policies and they're like, hey, I got this money in my policy now. I want to go do something with it. Hannah,
Right.
you're always talking about go put your little green men to work. So where should I go put my little green men to work at? And that's where I got started in investing. Is that, dad would actually come to me and my siblings and he would say, hey, give me your money. You give me your money. I'm going to pay you 10% on it, and I'm going to pay you checks every single month. And
Mm.
so that's kind of how I got into the
Okay.
mindset of knowing how to go and put my money to work. Because then what dad would do, all right, I would give my money to dad. And then he has other borrowers within his lending space that were paying him more than 10%. Hey, I'm going to take this money for my kids. I'm going to pay them 10 and I can go over here and make 12% on the money. Right.
Right. Right.
So I think lending is just a good entry level to understand how to put the money to work for you, because you don't got to spend all the time going
Right.
out and finding a property or researching if that crypto or that stock is going good right now. Should I be buying it right now
Right.
here at the demand and
Right.
all of that? So that's really where I like to
I
start.
love that. And I think part of that also is they've got to learn to think like the bank. Like they still don't really think like the banker, right? I was doing a seminar last night and I says, it was to real estate investors. It says, y'all think the asset is the house, right? But I said to the bank, what is it?
It's like,
And I said, it's collateral,
yeah,
right? And so their asset is the note. And so what if you could kind of marry into the family and do both? And so I like the lending part. How do you get, or how does, how do y'all get security? Like, how do you like really set it up? So if there's if they mess up, how do
yes.
you do that?
Yes. So I'm always filing that lien with the county.
Okay.
So I hold on paper that, hey, I own this asset and I come in the first position. I do not take any less than the first position on a property. Because another thing that my father told me is that if you're not first, you're last.
Right. Right. I love that. And I thanks for saying that because I wanted to put that out there. It's like it's not just, hey, I'm
Go
loaning
willy
money out.
nilly.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
willy-nilly. Yeah. That's funny. You took my word out of my mouth. I'm gonna say willy-nilly. It's not willy-nilly. And what about, so now, all right, so you're doing that, you got your feet wet there. And so now take me through how you do it with other asset classes, let's say real estate, because most of my people want to do real estate.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So then, I was doing a lot with Pops. I was loaning to him and I was like, all right, another phrase I like to use, pardon my French, but it's time to get off the nipple. So I need to go out, branch off from the family, and I'm going to go do my own lending deals. And
Hmm.
so that's where, like, I find a lot of my borrowers on privatemoneyclub.com is a good
Okay.
place to go. It's like a
Hmm.
match.com between borrowers and lenders. So
Okay.
Private Money Club. And then also, going out and speaking at these different real estate events too. I've met a lot of amazing, good people. That'll be my other advice. Go to your local RIA meetups. There's actually an app called Meetup, and you can see different things that are going on in your county or your state. But right now, I'm just 100% doing lending. I did have a property that it was my old primary and I was thinking about maybe just keeping it, renting it out, but just me personally and where I'm at in my life with my traveling and building my main business right now, I'm like, yeah, I don't got time for all of that. I'd rather just sell it, get out of it. And even though there could be a property management company coming in, I really just don't want to do that. That's not me.
Right.
Invest in the things that you like, know, and understand.
That's right.
So
That's right.
that's why I'm just 100% lending
Listen, I
right
feel
now.
you because especially we have a highly profitable business
Mhm.
that you could literally, with a few tweaks, double your income, and you can make more money faster than all the other stuff. And but we need some point you do a little bit of that to offset the taxes, but
Yes.
that's a whole other thing. My account was like, you need to get an apartment building, at least buy the building your office is in. You know,
And that's the journey I'm actually on this
yeah,
year is
yeah.
that I wrote a book. It's called The Single Millionaire Chick, and I
Oh,
haven't got it published yet because I wrote in there that, hey, I'm going to be adding on more into this book as 2025 progresses
hmm.
because my main goal is the tax code game because I paid too much money to the government last year. So, what can we be doing different now?
Amen.
Um,
So, amen. I mean, even though I put into policy, I don't want to use it for that.
mhm.
I just don't want them to give me a bill and I don't have the money. Like that's I don't need that stress in my life. So
That's right. That's right.
that's cool. So tell me about beyond seminars and workshops and other educational initiatives. What resource you found effective for spreading the awareness of understanding the IBC, the infinite banking concept? Anything you're doing or because here's the thing. Let me look at it this way. So we tell people I want people to read the book, and I almost, if they don't read the book, don't want to work with them. But am I too harsh with that? No. Okay.
Because, well, me, for instance, you got to watch my 90-minute presentation. You
Hmm.
watch my 90-minute presentation or you read Nelson Nash's book. I won't even hop on the phone with my own mother if she hasn't seen my presentation talk about banking. It,
Okay.
and it's just because it's such a paradigm shift, you know?
Yeah.
Again, I don't think it's hard. It's just the mental shift. The mind is so powerful and it's hard to reprogram the thinking that we've been conventionally taught. So, no, not at all. Let me tell you, actually, my generation, Gen Z, I have met a lot of cool people here recently going to events to the point that we actually create like our own little groups.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it takes some time, it takes some energy, and you got to be intentional with it. But like right now, we got a Boss Babes book club going on. You know what book we're reading right now? This one right here.
Okay.
So
You
that's
guys, I told you it's barely a book. It's 85 pages, right? So don't, stop like, oh, so I gotta read a book. I was like, look, 2 hours, it's done.
Mhm.
And you don't even understand until you've read it 3 times. So you gotta finish it and go right back through it. And then I'll do book inspections. Let me see your book. And then I'll show them my book, which is this is the badge of honor for all the old by IBCers, where it's all tattered, and I took it to Staples and put the
Yes,
binder in it, and it's highlighted. Mine's signed by Nelson, and
yes.
so it's like that's my. So I'll bring it because I'm bringing it. I might start having practitioners sign it because I created extra pages in it. But I'm trying to bring it to think tanks because you're going.
I'm going to see you next
Yeah,
month
we'll see you next month. Yeah,
or
as we record this, the think tank is coming up in February, so recording is the end of January. So yeah, 2025.
Hey,
Um,
let me
okay,
ask you, Curtis,
yeah.
are you in the real estate world or do you have short-term, long-term rentals or
I
what do you
don't. I
operate?
have. I'm more of a business guy.
Mhm.
But I do. We've had them. I've got one right now that's awesome. Because I don't even manage it. I got a property manager for it because I know I don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
And so we're looking. My wife and I are looking probably for to pick up one or two like multifamilies before the year's out. So our goal is two this year. Getting back into it, but it's funny because I have more profit I can realize off of practical wealth. Hopefully I'll have my first draft of my book done by the end of the first quarter. And
Amazing.
and I've created a second company called Practical Wealth Education LLC for like some intellectual property things got going on. And I can make more money faster. Um, but if you read, I always tell people one of my favorite Kiyosaki book is the third one, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing,
Okay.
because he talks about the BI triangle, but he says the purpose of business is to buy real estate. So,
Mhm.
I got to keep reminding myself of that because that's where you want to use money to buy real stuff that sends you a check.
Yeah, yeah. Even just there's this one chica that I've been following too. Her name is Cody Sanchez. Don't know too
I got her
much.
book right there.
I
Yeah. I didn't finish it. I'm about halfway done, but yeah, Cody Sanchez, a fine
The
millionaire.
whole acquisitions world, you
Yeah.
know, and I just that really interests me. And let me tell you, just being in my generation too, what I really find passion in is that don't let big banks and big corporations just come in and buy all of us out. You know, that's the coolest thing that we have here in America is the freedom to have our own small businesses, support the community, give back. You know, we're like what was it, BlackRock was coming in saying like, oh, don't be scared, you know, we're all going to be renting and it's going to be okay because the government's just going to take care of you. No, that's
No.
not what I want.
Right, right, exactly. Be careful what you wish for, right? And I think that I love her thing that we should own our businesses because Nelson says, you know, I have a slide on one of my talks that says everyone should have two businesses, the ones that gives them a paycheck and the banking business,
Yeah.
right? And I think that we can give that, but I was on a cruise with we were at a conference with Jim Oliver, and he was telling about the businesses that he, you know, uses cash value. He's really, well, he's in real estate also, but it seems like he's more of a let me buy business guy, which I
Yeah.
like. And but it's all about you got to capitalize your system, and then it's like, what do you like?
Yes.
What are you
Because there's
willing to learn?
no
Yeah,
silver bullet.
right, right. What do you want to learn? And so tell me, what do you do as to just to get better and suggestions for young people to as you get better every year as an entrepreneur, as a practitioner? What's your kind of your personal development regimen?
Yeah, I would say reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we don't take a lot of time just to reflect. I know, like, all right, we just came into the new year. People are writing down their goals, but it's like, okay, but let's also reflect on this past year. What have you done? What have you accomplished? And different things too. So I've also even just been growing up and knowing, you know, who am I? What do I want to do with my life and make the mark on this world? You know, I think the special gift with having this life here is that I want to show up and make something better than how I found it,
Right,
right?
right.
So I think my biggest thing is that stay connected with the people that actually push you. I was at a seminar not too long ago, and this one guy, he was a recovery. He had alcoholism. Okay.
Mhm.
And one of the questions that was asked within his AA meeting was, are you surrounding yourself with these people because of your addiction?
Mm,
And that had me kind of thinking. I was like, okay, well, who am I surrounding myself with in
right,
my life because
right.
of these different areas that I don't totally love about my life, different habits or things that I could be changing. And so I've really thought about I want to be surrounded by the people who I want to become because I see you and your success and what y'all are doing. And I think that's a big one just for people in my generation is think about
Mhm.
who you're spending your time with. And I know we've always heard that saying, you are the top, you are the average of the
Right,
top
right, right, right.
you hang around. But I'm telling y'all, it's actually
It's
correct. It's
actually
true.
nobody wants to hear that mindset stuff, but that's the key.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That's good. So where do you see what are your future aspirations for your business over the next year, 3 years, getting this message out? I think it's like we literally have the cure for financial cancer, but
Yeah.
we've got to get it out there. And so that's one of the things that drive me. Tell me what you see out there and what you'd like to see happen.
You know, I want to go to schools. I've really been targeting a lot of schools, a lot of parents.
Mhm.
Um, I think just hearing from my perspective of saying, hey, I am your kid talking to you right now in the
Mm,
future. And let
mhm.
me just tell you where your kid could be at if you start making these changes today, because the time is now and it starts today. So, definitely trying to get more into having financial literacy be more of a mainstream topic in schools.
Okay.
Also, with the media route of the television being on CBS, Fox LA coming up here soon, I think just getting the awareness around just even thinking about money because adults, y'all don't really think about a whole bunch of money all the time. It's just, hey,
Right.
I go make, I spend, and then hopefully there's some left over.
Right, right, right. So You big time. All right. Just don't forget us little people when you blow up and I see you on Good Morning America or Fox. I don't know.
Never.
They don't seem to like money over there, but they get you on somewhere where that's don't get me
And
started. All
stir the
right.
pot. Have those hard
Yeah.
conversations, you know?
I think that because see, to me, to discuss means to thrash out. Like, so I don't really have a problem colliding if we disagree philosophically, politically, economically. To me, the conversations need to be had, and to me, it's fun. It's like if everybody agree with me, it's interesting. So my nickname is a contrarian. So I have no problem starting a fight, you know, or starting a. I was at a conference one that I won, and this woman said, so I won't go into detail, but she said something to me that she thought I would, some liberal BS that she thought I would agree with. And I was like, no, I don't think that's correct at all. And her face just, what'd you
Yeah.
say? And then I've already had like, I might be 3 beers in. So I'm kind of unfiltered. So they're trying to separate us. I was like, look, I'm fine. We can
Yeah.
talk about whatever, and because that was the most interesting conversation I've been in all night. Right. So now she was a little annoyed, but I was like, I'm fine. I'm not.
There's been
It's just, you know.
Curtis, no, I feel you, man. There's been times where like some people will get agitated and different things.
Yeah.
Like I spend a lot of my time in the airports, okay? And so
Hmm.
when I'm at the airport and I'm just maybe sipping on a beer or having
Hmm.
like a meal before my next flight on my
Hmm.
layover,
Hmm.
you get into conversations with people. Well, why are you here? What do you do? And that's when we kind of go down the
Yeah.
rabbit hole. And there have been some confrontational
Wow.
conversations. And it's like it's okay that we disagree, but again, that's why I always say there's no one silver bullet to anything in life. So just don't be totally closed off that you just don't hear from the other side.
Hmm.
Always be open and receptive to learning. What does Nelson Nash say? Never hit the arrival syndrome. But you don't got to implement everything that you hear. Pick up the things that resonate with you that you want to keep carrying on with, and then throw the rest away or to the side.
I love
So,
it. Hey, and I got to get you back because we're 40 minutes in because I want to. I was looking at I like getting into the weeds a little bit because I know you can go there, but I don't want to start it at the end of the call. So we have to do a part two because I want to, yeah, stuff like how are you? Because a lot of people don't get the part. Maybe you can do this real quick, and then I'll let you tell them how to find you. The when you say pay yourself back with interest, right? You can't put, because I tell you, I was such a knucklehead. The first year, I sent extra money back, but I didn't leave the room in the PUA rider. So the company kept sending the money back to the client, and I was like, "What is going on?" This is why I found a really good mentor to show me how to do this. But when you say that, how do you actually help them structure that? Like, how are you coaching them through that?
good question. Good question. Number one, have a segregated checking account.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Um, I like to use it one of two ways. Number one, pay myself first. Before
Mm-hmm.
I go pay any of my bills, I move money from my main account into my segregated account. That's me paying myself first, and that's the money that I pay my premiums into my policy. But then also, I use it for when I take loan money out of my policy,
Yeah.
that loan money goes directly into that segregated checking account because it's
Okay.
tax-free money. And just to keep it easy for my tax guy at the end of the year, he knows what's taxable income and what's not because I'm
Right.
keeping it separate and organized. And so actually, this is a real life example. In October, I just had my property tax bill come due,
Mm-hmm.
10,700 effing dollars, man. That was
Ouch.
a lot.
Ouch. Property tax. Damn.
So what I did is I went on to bankrate.com and they
Uh-huh.
have their loan calculators. And I said, okay, 10,700. Hannah charges herself 10% interest because that's just what I charge from me borrowing from myself.
Right.
And if I want to pay this money back in 12 months, because in 12 months, I'm going to have another tax bill that I got to go pay.
Right.
So, loan calculator, what does my monthly payment have to be? And it came out to $940 a month. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that 940 and I'm paying myself back inside of my policy because my policy can always hold the principal of the amount that I've taken out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I failed to mention at the start of this, but here's what we got to do too. You need to know where your MEC limit is at. Your
Right.
MEC, modified endowment contract. And so I will write into the insurance company after I pay my premiums for the year, so I know where my MEC limit is at, and I say, "Hey, how much extra monies can I fit inside this policy and not hit my MEC limit?" They run and do that calculation, and then they come back to me. So I know before I even start this process of me paying myself back, I know how much extra wiggle room I can put in, and I always know that I can always pay back the principal of the loan amount that I've taken out. And then if I get to that point where I fill up my loan bucket back
Right.
again and it's replenished, and I put in the maximums into the paid up additions, that's where my segregated checking account comes
So it
into play.
just resides in there after you fill the policy back up. If you still got, because I heard Nelson say once you paid everything back and you still have money left over on your amortization schedule, start another policy.
Start another policy, and
Yeah.
that's where it comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that detail.
Good.
Because a lot of people are confused by that, and I want somebody else to say it. I don't want to have to say it all the time.
I know. I know.
Hannah, anything I didn't ask you that you want to, drop, gems you want to drop on our listeners, or tell them where to go, when the book is going to drop, all that good stuff.
I would just say I really love this. I think for all of you listeners who are listening to Curtis right now, seriously, he's a really sweet, gentle, amazing gentleman. So you are in good hands with Curtis here. And hey, Curtis, you're going to be coming onto my podcast show soon, the Money Multiplier podcast. So we'll be scheduling that.
Okay.
But no, I would say my biggest thing is that just remain disciplined, and it's okay if you fall short some months. Stay with your community. You have people here who are walking on the same journey as you are, and it's okay to ask for help. That's why we're here doing what we do. So I believe in y'all, and I'm very proud of all of you.
Thank you. Hannah, tell them do you have a show? Yeah. Tell them what's the name of your podcast.
The Money Multiplier Podcast. And you can also even go to my website, hannahkesler.com. So Hannah spelled the same ways forwards and backwards, and Kesler with one S.
Okay. Awesome. Hannah, thank you. This has been fantastic. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you and talking a little bit. And but anyway, I was just saying, listen, this has been fantastic. It was a pleasure getting to know you a little bit on this call. We'll see each other soon. But I look forward to when you're ready sharing. I'll tell you both things I know, or as Don Bland would say, on your show. But I thank you for really going into detail and just giving your perspective. So now I'm gonna send your thing out to all my under 30 people. I'm gonna send it out to everybody, but now I got a specific show for my daughter's friends. I'm trying to get them started managing their cash flow. So I'm gonna send your story out there to them. But guys, go out there and you've heard it, and now you know how to manage the asset if your listings are already set up, or get with us to help you get it set up. Hannah, thank you again.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Till next time.
All right, till next time.